let's just call this what it is. This isn't about foreign policy or cutting some sort of deal. This is the Mideast wanting to wash away, just like they did with, the World Cup, wash away their sins with whatever sort of spectacle they can, whether it's putting money into tech companies, which has been going on for a while, or putting it into sports teams, or putting it into the purple carpet that Donald Trump went off on, and the elaborate dinner with the drums. I mean, this all looks great, but pull back the layers and we know exactly who these countries are. And if America is going to stand for what we have stood for since World War II, we should be openly asking questions about this, as Joe Biden did. And that's just not coming from Donald Trump right now.
All right, I'll go. Hogan, go ahead.
Yeah, you're not wrong, Namiki, but I don't think, I think everyone understands that. Like the administration is very clear-eyed here. Now, the difference is there a potential for a deal to be done? Of course. I don't know what percentage that would be, but I will tell you, because of the disdain that Saudi had for Biden, for example, or disrespect they had for Biden, at least Trump's coming to this with some sense of clout with this group that, of course, they want to wash away their sins. Of course, they want to pretend like the things they've done in the past have never happened. But we're never going to get to a point where peace is even a thought, another Abraham Accords, anything like that is even on the table, unless you're starting with a position of power or at least somewhat mutual respect between the two leaders. Joe Biden didn't have that. He never did. Trump has had it and does now. So as he likes to say, we'll see what happens.
Nomi, I'm so grateful to you for speaking so honestly and with such moral clarity. And I agree with both of you, really. It's complicated, right? Because we have to deal with them. We can't, and there's no doubt that engagement of this type, I think, has a greater prospect of making them less likely to violate human rights, bringing them more into what our sense of the community of nations is than some other tactics. This is on point. This is number 7. This is the president talking about this issue of previous presidents, in his view, judging the past of these Middle East countries. Number 7.
In recent years, far too many American presidents have been afflicted with the notion that it's our job to look into the souls of foreign leaders and use U.S. policy to dispense justice for their sins. They loved using our very powerful military, and now it's really the most powerful it's ever been. We just are getting a budget approved, $1 trillion, highest budget we've ever had in history for military, $1 trillion. And we're getting the greatest missiles, the greatest weapons. And, I hate to do it, but you have to do it because we believe in peace through strength. You have to have the strength, otherwise bad things could happen. But hopefully we'll never have to use any of those weapons. Seems to be an awfully big waste of money if you're never going to use them, but hopefully we'll never have to use them, because the destructive power of some of those weapons are like nobody's seen before. I believe it is God's job to sit in judgment, my job to defend America and to promote the fundamental interest of stability, prosperity, and peace. That's what I really want to do.
So the line about look into the soul of leaders is a reference to George W. Bush saying he looked into Putin's soul, of course. And it's really a profound thing. And again, Naomi, I couldn't agree with you more about the importance of not whitewashing history and not lowering our standards below a certain point. But I have to say, there's something about Trump's realism that breaks through for a lot of Americans. And again, it goes back to like Trump with tariffs in China, or Trump with some of the other things he proposes, the border. Like, he's against the status quo. And if you want to defend the status quo about Saudi Arabia, for instance, and say, well, the way Obama and Biden did it was perfect, you got to look at the results, right? And they just nobody's happy with the situation. And he does have the capacity to have rapport, right? And that matters, right? Naomi.
Yeah, I mean, listen, he has this brilliant way of capturing something that Americans are across the board frustrated with, whether it's the fact that so many jobs went overseas in the 70s, and then again with trade policies in the 90s, that makes sense, but he's not providing solutions. So, saying that we're going to end our trade agreements around the world before bringing manufacturing jobs back home, that's not smart policy. Disrupting the world order and saying we're now isolationists, because, we're not the peacemakers that he thinks we are. Or, I mean, what I found interesting was he's, raving about our big military budget and all the weapons, which kind of goes against his theory, but simultaneously says that, we're not the peacemakers around the world, and, we don't want to be dropping those bombs. But it's not like he's providing some sort of alternative. He wants to disrupt the world order. He wants to make American power, smaller. I do not agree with many of the policies that the U.S. has conducted over the last 60, 70 years. Just look at the global South. But that doesn't mean that you completely flip over the world order. I'm a Bernie Sanders Democrat. I think that we should have more humane policies and more humane foreign policy when it comes to these agreements. But it doesn't mean that we hand over the keys to Russia and China.
Hogan.
Right. I mean, you don't want to hand over the keys to Russia or China. I do think, Mark, you're hitting on something about Trump that has always been fascinating to me, because as a lifelong Republican and having worked for the Rick Santorums of the world, the Mike Huckabees, the Elizabeth Doles, he brings a different aspect to the office, but also a different level of understanding. He does call it as he sees it. He is very say the quiet part out loud. He doesn't see the world as he wants it to be. He sees it as it is. And so when he's trying to make these massive changes, not just here at home, but globally, he's coming to this with an ideology that he's been talking about, since he was on Oprah Winfrey in the 80s. And there's a word that kind of permeates through his administration, whether it's the tariffs, where a country can charge us a certain amount for bringing goods into their country, but we can't charge them. It's men and women's sports. It's the prescription drugs, whatever it is. It's fairness. He's tapping into something where the American people don't feel like they're getting treated fairly on the global stage. And so his voice to that, I think, is something that we've not seen from the Republican Party in a while. And I like that he's taking it there. As far as this meeting, though, is concerned, and this trip is concerned, as well as I do, because I've been there, you bake in a lot of successes beforehand. So when you get there and they happen, you can say, see what we did, even though a lot of this stuff was kind of, orchestrated before.
The pre-cooked deliverables.
Of course. Yeah. And there'll be some. I bet there are a lot.
That was a delicious video experience. I think you'll agree. Now, what you need to do in return for getting to enjoy that is hit the subscribe button, be part of the two-way community, never miss a thing.